Hey everybody, we are doing the Purpose People podcast today, and we got a bit of a Christmas theme today. So I am welcoming Mike and Ollie from Warwickshire Christmas Tree Farm. So welcome to the podcast.
Hi.
Hello.
We're going to talk about all things Christmas trees, but you're a father and son duo, and you supply much of the region of Warwickshire with Christmas trees. So how did you get into that?
I always wanted to have a small farm and had the opportunity about 15 years ago to buy a small holding. And we had a bit of ground that wasn't being used and decided on Christmas trees. It's taken 10 years from planting to getting to a stage where we've got 30,000 trees in the ground.
Wow.
And we've got a range of sizes up to about 15 foot or 4.5 meters. And the business is developing, and we like welcoming families and children over to have a walk around and see what we do, and we get a great buzz from it.
So Christmas trees, obviously, for a lot of people, they're probably rushing around and buying a Christmas tree from a retail outlet. I'm not going to name names, but a retail outlet of some description, last minute, £20 cash, quick, get it, chuck it on the thing. But you guys do it a lot differently in terms of there's a bit more of an experience to it. Ollie, do you want to just share a little bit about the experience that someone comes to the place? What would they do?
So we offer quite a unique opportunity whereby most places you go to, whether it be a garden centre or supermarket or even other places, all of the trees are already cut, often already netted and wrapped, so you just have to sort of lucky dip and pick the one that you'd like.
Yeah.
Whereas because ours are still fresh growing in the field up until the point that you choose it, you get to see the tree open, never been wrapped up, so all of the branches are nice and relaxed. But you also get to see it where it's been for the last 8 years, planted as a 3-year-old sapling.
Yeah.
So you can just walk into the field. We have a few wheelbarrows, which we initially intended, colourful wheelbarrows, which we initially intended for people to transport the trees, but now it just works as sort of quite a fun medium for children to get wheeled around in. And then they get bored of that, and then the wheelbarrows.
Any adults? Do you get any adults stuck in there?
One or two. I'm not sure. I haven't seen any pictures.
Too much mulled wine, and you put them in the wheelbarrow, and you're moving them around.
But yeah, so you get to go into the field, walk around. There's 30,000 to choose from. Spectacularly, some people still manage to spend 3 hours and not find a tree that they like a couple of times a year, and amazingly.
Is that because they're looking for one that's not green?
Oh, it's just bizarre, honestly. Sometimes
Too much choice.
Too much choice. You get people, the majority of people, probably 20 minutes, half an hour.
Yeah.
They go in, have a look around. They're off probably 75% of the time. It's the first tree that you see.
Yeah.
And they'll go, right, I like the look of that one. But you go do the routine, go and have a look through some of the others. But then some people, just I think the record that we've had is 3.5 hours, of which an hour was spent, someone was going around trying to help them pick one intermittently, and just left without buying anything, could not decide.
Wow.
So that shows how much we've got to choose from.
So just to add to that, Mike, then, so obviously there's loads of trees, as you said, but what's the difference? Are they many species or?
Yeah, there are lots of different species.
So what do you stock?
We started off by planting half a dozen different varieties, but we found that 2 or 3 of them don't really grow well on our ground and with the conditions. So we've got mainly Nordman, which is 80% of the market, Norway, which is your traditional Christmas tree, that has some bad history.
Okay.
Needles dropping, but if they're nice and fresh, then they're they're good and they'll last for a long, long time. And then we have Douglases, which are really nice, have a wonderful scent, and last really well. So those are the 3 main ones that we.
Is the needles a differential?
Yeah. The Nordmans have a really hard. Strong needle that is retained very, very well. It's probably the best of the lot from a needle retention point of view. The Douglases are probably almost as good, but a much softer needle, and the Norways are more spiky, and they will lose their needles more readily. But if they're kept away from direct heat and kept well watered, then they will last well as for a good long period.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the things that people, when they choose a a real tree over a plastic one. I mean, obviously there's a sustainability question now, but the point of it is that it's about taking care of them afterwards. And I think what you've just mentioned, Ollie, is that you can choose your tree, but you don't have to chop it quite yet. You can get it closer to the date, and then therefore it lasts. Because I only found out the other day, do you know how old an apple is in a normal supermarket when you eat it?
Probably 2 to 3 weeks, I would think.
Okay, go up.
Okay, 5 weeks. How old?
They reckon an apple that you buy from the supermarket is actually a year old. With preservatives and where it's travelled from and stuff like that. So apples in a supermarket, the normal apple that you would normally buy, are often up to a year old. Now, I didn't know this. I thought, no, you're nonsense. But we had the nutritionalists go through the different food groups and stuff like that. And apple's one of the worst for age. So hence why there's this push for going to farms, because they want fresh food, without all the pesticides and stuff like this. So the same with trees, you're getting them chopped down and they're almost dying anyway, like almost on their last legs when you get them into your house.
Well, they're planted as a crop in the first place. So when people think, I want to buy a fake tree because then real trees aren't getting cut down, you've got to bear in mind that they're planted like any other crop, like wheat, barley, grain, any of that sort of thing. They're planted with the intention of harvesting. But unlike those common crops, they have a much longer period of growth. So not only it's a slower cycle rather than say 6 months a year for any normal crop.
Yeah.
The cycle for an average sort of 6 foot tree is usually probably about 8 years old, varying on species and ground soil conditions, etc. But in that time, in that 6-8 years that they're in the ground, they're obviously taking in all the carbon dioxide, releasing oxygen, and they're a lot more. It's possibly one of the most eco-friendly things that we can do. We're planting all the time. For every tree that we harvest, we're planting 2 more.
Right.
And the amount of time that they're in for, they're generating a lot of oxygen back into the atmosphere. And so the other only thing is that we don't, because they're on the farm, the only transport, the only sort of emissions that you'd get is maybe the quad bike running around that runs it the 80 meters from the field to the sales shed, the little bit of plastic netting that goes in, and then into your car. So it's as eco-friendly as you could get. Whereas if you have a look at the bigger supermarkets or larger garden centres retailers, they will often get them from Scandinavia, or they'll get them in from Scotland, the big wholesaling farms down in Scotland. So you've either got the diesel, the miles that they're driven from Scandinavia and then shipped over, or whether they're driven down in the Arctic lorries from Scandinavia. So not only by having them fresh from the farm do you guarantee quality, freshness, and also just the unique opportunity to choose it whilst it's still growing, but you're also helping the environment by not supporting those larger retailers who are contributing more in terms of emissions.
Yeah, that's great. So
also, a lot of the trees that are cut for consumption are cut in October.
Oh, okay.
So they're already, a month or so old before you buy them, generally, in the larger outlets. Yeah. And if they've been transported in containers, they might have been in very hot conditions. So they're often, you hear the stories of getting a tree home and all the needles fall off.
Oh, 100%.
That's why. Whereas if you come to a farm and you can choose one that's still growing and cut it down, then you know it's guaranteed to be fresh.
Well, I only found out through talking to you guys about underfloor heating being a bit problematic with trees, because you don't think that way, do you? You just keep topping it up with water, and obviously that's it's being dried out because of the underfloor heating and stuff. So, can you, between you, just give me like 5 tips to look after a Christmas tree?
If you get a fresh Christmas tree, ideally you want to leave it for 24, 48 hours before you take it indoors, so it doesn't get too much of a shock from going from, let's say, 5 degrees up to 25, 30 degrees, especially if it's going with underfloor heating or near a radiator or Arga or something like that. Yeah. So give it a day or two just to acclimatise. Then get it into a stand, cut an inch off the bottom so it hasn't sealed over with sap.
Yeah.
Get it into a stand that holds water and keep it well watered. Try and keep it away from radiators and direct heat sources. And just keep it well watered because they can drink a litre or so a day in some cases.
So you would recommend watering them every single day?
Well, at least every 2 or 3 days, just keep them checked up.
Make sure you buy a stand that holds water, because you see a lot of these stands that are just metal frames with 3 prongs going up, or the screw clamps in. If they don't hold water, you can't. It's like, for example, when you buy flowers. When you buy flowers, you cut the bottom centimetre or 2 off. You might crush them slightly so they absorb more, but you stick them in a vase of water, which then helps them, keeps them fresher for longer. It's the exact same thing with a Christmas tree. Maybe not crush the stump, because that'd be quite impressive. But you need to keep it topped up with water, because obviously when it's inside, it's warm, it's drying out, the tree's trying to survive. And if you're not giving it a chance, then the product's not going to be as good and it's not going to last as long.
Wow. So obviously father and son partnership. Is that correct? Looking at you both. How did that happen? Was it just...
Well,
tell me the story. Come on.
So Mike started it, whether this was his initial thought, whether he's just added it on because it sounds good, was that he started this when I started secondary school. So when I joined year 7 when I was 11 years old, that's when Mike planted the first few trees into the field and sort of started to kickstart it and get it rolling. With the intention that maybe once I'd finished school, or if I went to university, there would be something there ready to get into, or something to take on, so there was purpose, rather than you hear so many people, they either leave school or they go to university, then after university, they've got their degree or whatever.
That's quite forward thinking there, Mike.
Yeah, I thought it would be a good idea to sort of try and teach them about business and how to be patient, and you don't just start something up and expect it to be an immediate success. And with trees, it's at least a 10-year lead time. We just started selling a few trees out the back of the pub, and over the years it's grown, and we're now sort of the business is growing nicely, and it's something that Ollie's become involved with, learned from day one. And he's now largely running the business. Yeah. So, and I'm starting to take a sidestep or a back seat.
But you're seeing this business. I mean, I'm not trying to be a pun or make a joke, but you are seeing the business growing, because as you're planting, as you're doing, you're seeing the demand increase, and obviously the operation is growing. So, how many people literally look after the site? Because it must be quite a big site.
Well, we use subcontractors to do most of the agronomy, the spraying and weeding and pruning and leader control, and they come in with a team of maybe up to half a dozen people and spend 4 or 5 days at a time going through 4 or 5 times in a season, because there's a lot of work involved in looking after the trees and the fields, and that's without trying to keep the rabbits and the deer and the pheasant and the bunnies and everything else out. So there's a lot of work involved in producing these things.
So Mike, what was your background before then? Because it seems quite it's not the sort of thing you go, what do you want to do when you leave school, and you tick a box and go, I want to run a Christmas tree farm. So what was your background?
I had a plumbing business, and I was a plumber over in South Africa. I had my own business for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then when I came to South Africa, to the UK, I started doing swimming pools. And we still do the swimming pools as well through the summer season.
Yeah.
So we run the two businesses together now.
So when you say do swimming pools, what, you make them,
we
install
maintain
them?
and refurb, and we do the occasional installation, but largely it's maintenance and refurbishment.
And then obviously as a result of that, then you got a plot of land and then began the Christmas tree business.
And the pools are a seasonal thing. It starts in March and goes through to October, and the Christmas trees, largely it's just November, December for harvesting, although there's work throughout the year. And that's why we have subcontractors that look after the trees largely throughout the season.
The other thing is that you don't just, it's not just for consumers, is it? You help a lot of businesses as well with their Christmas trees.
So we have been looking at getting into doing some wholesaling. However, the numbers though we say we've got 32,000 trees, which sounds like a lot, compared to the larger places which have 1 million, 2 million, 5 million in the ground, like up in Scotland, we can't compete on the wholesale prices. They can manage to produce them in such a way that they can wholesale them at a price that we can't produce them for. We're really having to try and focus in on the retailing. So we do mainly do retailing to people who come to site to go and pick the trees, but we do also retail to businesses as well. So one thing that we're looking into again this year is something that we've noticed previously, especially in hospitality settings like restaurants, pubs, where they have the heating or they have fires very warm. They like to keep it nice and warm inside. The trees are struggling. The trees have struggled in previous years because it might be run at 25 degrees, etc. And also when you've got rotating staff of half a dozen people and you've got one manager whose main concern is to run the business, make sure that everyone gets served smoothly. No one thinks about watering the tree. And then after, it can be as quick as we can cut the tree, say on a Thursday, we can deliver it to them on a Friday, and we might have a phone call within 2.5 weeks saying the tree's looking really dry. Well, we know it's not the quality because of the freshness. We know we have all the agronomy that's done throughout the year, so we know the quality of the tree is assured. It's not like, for example, when you buy them in, initially what we were doing a few years ago, whilst our trees were still growing and we weren't ready to harvest, we were having to buy them in from our partner farms. And they say that their quality is good and fresh, but if it comes on the back of a trailer, you don't know when it was cut. It could have been cut 2 days ago, it could have been cut a month ago. So we know that the quality is fresh, but then they're not being cared for properly. So the thing that we're looking into maybe this year is offering a two tree package where the business can pay for the tree or pay for the trees up front. And then in an allotted time slot, they can either give us a call and say, okay, we're ready for the tree swap. Or if we just book in a day marked on the calendar, say 2 weeks from the first tree, that way they get the 2 trees. They always look nice and fresh. They don't have to worry about looking after them so much. And then it's happy customer, that restaurant or business, their customers are happy because they're seeing nice fresh products in, they're looking after it, looks nice and fresh and neat. And it also keeps our reviews well because we maintain customer service as one of the highest things apart from the freshness and the quality of the trees.
So it's obviously, Mike, you've gone the pioneer, the forerunner, if you like, to set the business up and run. And then obviously you've come on board and you're working together. What's the biggest learning that you've learnt together, working together? What
father and son?
Patience.
What's it? Patience.
Patience and resilience.
Resilience, okay. What would you say?
Yeah, we've had our moments, but for the most part we do okay.
Any stories now, because this opens it up.
One's for camera and one's not for camera. It can be testing. Not only it used to be at the time just before Mike met Susie, I was living with Dad in a house because there was a family situation going on, and so we were living under the same roof, eating breakfast, going out working together, coming back, doing the office work together, sitting eating dinner. And that probably lasted about 5 weeks before I went and found somewhere else to live because
it was too much.
Just a little bit too much. We're both quite big personalities and we're also both rather stubborn in the way we'd like things done. So when that stubbornness crosses into a disagreement...
And when the beer ran out.
And there was no coffee in the pot. And
so would you say you get your stubbornness from your father? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, probably even Stephen from you and Mum, to be honest. My mum's has been rather successful in the field she was in, but she's very, very clinical, analytical, very stubborn. So it's probably a mixture, but I get rather a lot of that from him.
So in terms of lessons, then, have you got any lessons for people, father and sons working together? Because obviously, a lot of people have family businesses. People are getting older, and they're looking to hand over the reins, so to speak. Have you got any tips, Mike? That you've seen any insights that you think, what, actually, I could give people a bit of advice here?
It can work. It can be very challenging, and equally, a lot of younger people coming through don't want to be doing what their parents did.
Yeah.
So certainly don't force it on them or expect them to come into a family business.
Yeah, that's good.
If they want to, that's great, but don't try and no. The opportunity is there, and I said all along, I've got 2 businesses, and if Ollie wants to come into them, that's great. If not, he can go and do whatever he wants, and I'll support him. Yeah. But he seems to have taken to it and quite likes the lifestyle and freedom. So it works pretty well, and I'm maturing now, and I'm trying to have the occasional day off, maybe a Sunday a week, so I can go out and do things with my new wife.
So what about yourself then, Ollie? What have you learnt working with your father?
Genuinely, though, I said it before as a joke, patience. Yeah. You come in and you're young, and obviously you have to listen. The first 2, 3, 4 years is almost all listening. Yes, you start to, after a couple of years, after you've gone through the rhythms, you've learned most of the basics and the ropes and probably 60% of how you do the job, whether that be in the swimming pools or with the Christmas trees. They're your senior, so even though they're your dad, you need to treat them like a business partner.
Yeah.
You can't, for example, if you say, right, every morning we meet at 7:30 in the office, to leave for 8, to be able to get a full day in, then we'll do something later. You can't then roll out of bed at 7:45 and going, oh, it's fine, it's just dad. You need to hold yourself to those standards as much as he does, or they do, whether it be a mother or a father. So patience and respect. You get frustrated.
Yeah.
You can sometimes feel, although they are telling you the correct thing and they're being repetitive so that you learn it, it can come across, especially whatever mood you're in that day, it can come across as being condescending, or sort of like they're talking to you like you're their child and not their business partner.
Right, okay.
So you have to sort of be able to remove yourself from that slightly and go, right, whilst we're in the office, whilst we're out doing this, it's work, it's business, it's not personal, it's just what the business needs to continue. And then once you have that beer at 5:30, 6, you might still talk about work or discuss. Anytime I go over for dinner, we're at 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, we're still talking about what can be done to the website, what needs to happen to the social media, what jobs need to be done next week. Yeah. But then you need to be able to learn to have that switch off and divide so that it's not all work and it's not all pleasure.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So just talk us through, guys, in terms of the site itself, because obviously you've got a site, there's loads of trees there in terms of, but there's more than just an open field with trees in, isn't there? You do other things, food and that sort of stuff.
We on the busy weekends, which is normally the last weekend in November and the first 2 in December, we partnered with a local farm who produces all their own meat and veggies and things, and they helped us out for the first couple of years, but then they got so busy on their own farm, so we've now got a food wagon that comes along, and they do really nice food. Okay. So they come and do burgers and full English breakfasts and baps and all really, really nice, and that's gone down really well. So people can come along and have a nice munch on a Sunday morning or whatever. Yeah. There is some mulled wine for some of those people that might be interested. Yeah,
and you've got the wheelbarrows to get them down.
And wheelbarrows. We bought 20 multicoloured wheelbarrows. So it's colourful, and you can see them in the field when everybody abandons them here, there, and everywhere. Yeah. But it's a bit of fun for the kids as well, and it's just great to see the little ones' faces when they come out and go out to choose a tree.
It's a great experience.
It is. Hopefully when they start off and do it, they're young, it'll become a family tradition. They'll come back year after year, and we have photographers that come out and do photo shoots, and they start off sometimes with a 1-year-old baby or a brand new baby, and the next year they come back and they're bigger.
Oh, that's cool.
So 4 or 5 years later, we've got the whole Neanderthal sort of growing up. But it's great, and it's just trying to get people to come back and enjoy it.
So obviously it's a big site, but what's the biggest tree you sold?
from our field, so our trees are only up to a few of the ones that have taken root very well. They're slightly thinner, but they're probably 14 foot.
Wow.
So the largest that we've sold last year, there was a 13 foot. It was head and shoulders above the rest. It was sort of like
How
that.
did they
that
transport
one.
it? Did you deliver it? Or did they stick it
So
on top of the car?
that one, I believe they're only a couple of miles away from the farm. So we just took a trailer and harvested it, took it back, and then stuck it on the trailer and dropped it around. But the largest that we have supplied and sold was one that we buy, and we do a few town councils or village greens, that sort of thing every year.
Yeah.
So the largest we've done is a 21 foot, which was to a village just outside of or a small town just outside of Banbury.
And you grew that one, yeah?
No, so
okay.
that one was bought in. It'll be a few years yet until we're going to leave sort of a patch in the bottom to just let a few bolt, because those larger ones, though there's a lot less demand for them, they're also a lot more tricky to find. So if you have that, then you can start to get a bit of a monopoly on the larger places around.
Yeah.
But those big ones are, once you get over about 20 foot, then it becomes a real mission. Somehow the last couple of years we've managed to help the people who have bought it erect that 20 foot tree just with 3 of us and a hole in the ground.
Yeah, so how does that, Mike, a huge tree of that, how do you keep it, like you've harvested it, but how do you keep it from not falling over?
We had last year we had 2 big ones to deliver, and they said, "Well, no, we need you to help erect them." So we got there, and they pointed out the 2 places, and one was right next to his helipad. We said, "Well, this is probably not the best place to have a cut Christmas tree because the blades might take the top off and blow it over anyway." So we had to knock a big stake in the ground and tether it. Dig a hole in the ground as well to get the trunk in the ground a bit so that it can't just slip over.
Yeah.
And so they had 2 big ones. Indoors up to 20 foot, up a spiral staircase and tethered, on the banister.
Yeah.
You have a big stand or a big basket with logs and things in at the bottom just to stop it from sliding around. So we can help with those sort of things, but we do try not to do the installation as much because it does take a lot of time, and we're limited for staff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what about the smallest? Do you get anyone like saying, "I just want one for my desk"?
Oh yeah.
So what happens, becoming more regularly, which is actually quite nice, the little ones who have come when they're really small, and then they start to walk on their own, and they're walking around with their parents. And obviously they're getting the big main tree for the kitchen or for the lounge or however. And they go, "Oh, can I have one for my room?" So a couple of times, probably half a dozen times a year now, you get a little one who wants a sapling, maybe only been planted 2 or 3 years ago. So then we get the chainsaw out and we make the whole big theatre, stand back, get the helmet on, visor down, for a tree which stem is no more than about 2 inches. So we like to do that, and we'll give those ones away as little freebies because it's about making the experience. If you give that and you make them feel special for that moment, then you've got them hooked.
Yeah, because ultimately it's about coming back and coming back and coming back. So have you got any more stories to tell? Any more numerous stories, famous people, whatever, that have come for a tree?
We have quite an interesting demographic of people, but we obviously can't go mentioning names.
It's having a lot of the majority of the trees is obviously people coming to the farm.
Yeah.
So it's mostly just your average person who wants a nice day out, bring the kids, or not even. Quite often we just get couples. That's a story actually. Last year we got a message mid to late October, and it was a lad who has been with his girlfriend for 8-9 years or so now. So we arranged it. They brought their own photographer. We got them a nice little secluded section in the far reaches of the field, and they proposed. So there was a proposal on the farm last year. They had their own champagne. They came back, got some food, had a walk around. We gave them a tree for the site. So that was really nice. And then they brought their own photographer, gave us some pictures to use for everything as well. So that's really nice. But you what's nice about it, you don't need the big stories. It's just every Saturday, Sunday, you see flows of families, and it's almost a scapegoat, especially at the moment with the cost of living and everybody struggling. Okay, a Christmas tree, for some people, the people who really love Christmas, a tree is an essential.
Yeah.
That is part of the budget. Whereas to other people, it may be, can we really do one this year? So for those people that choose for it, that is an essential, whatever worries or other stresses they've got going on, they come through the gates, they grab a bit of food, they have a bit of mulled wine, they listen to the music, they see the quad bikes that we've got dressed up as sleighs running around the field blasting music, and then you just get lost in a wonderland for half an hour.
Yeah.
And then we like to think of it as a little escape, to the point where in the future we're going to look to start to run sort of a very local Christmas market. We've got a little bit of space that we need to clear and work on quite a lot, but eventually the goal is to move everything up to by the road so it's slightly more accessible, and then we'll have 10, 12 different stalls, live music, food, local selling wares and tears, and make it a venue that people will travel to, like the Birmingham markets or anything, but we don't want it to become that commercialized. We want to keep it nice and niche, local, real people doing real things, and personable.
No, it's great. So how would people get hold of you then? If you say, for instance, they've listened to this podcast and said, you know what, actually, I'm going to go out for the day and pick my tree and go on that journey. What's the easiest way for them to get in touch?
Well, we've got our website, Warwickshire Christmas Tree Farm, which gives us fairly good exposure.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram. Ollie, you tell them.
So we're on Instagram and Facebook, just those two. We've got the website, which is www.warwickshirechristmastrees.co.uk.
Yeah.
On there's also a contact us form if you'd like to send us an inquiry. There's also the email. Both of our phone numbers are on there. So if you've just got a quick question, we have set up a new frequently asked questions page.
Great.
So if it's anything just about times, location, whether there's parking, accessibility, all of that sort of thing, those questions are on there. So if you just go and have a look at those. But if you have a more pressing question, or if you'd like a quote for something, if you just click that contact us form, and then we'll get back to you as soon as we can. We tried to reply within 24 hours, but obviously when the season gets really busy, if you send us an inquiry at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning, we might not get back to you until Sunday evening.
Yeah, and also I think we're between Banbury and Stratford-on-Avon.
Shakespeare.
Yep,
Country.
and we're signposted off the road. So it's a fairly busy area with lots of new people moving in, lots of new houses being built in Banbury, Stratford, Wellesbourne. So it's convenient. We're not out in the boonies, in Scotland or Wales.
So just lastly, then, as we wrap up, just talk us through the process, what to expect. So they make a contact with you. Just talk us through that process of how it would normally go.
So say they know the opening time, they know the location. So say 8:30 till 5:30. They want to come to the farm at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
They'll turn up. The car park will be rammed.
Yeah.
We get very, very busy on those main weekends. So if you prefer something slightly quieter, it's better to come midweek when most people are at work or school.
Yeah.
But you'll turn up. There's a long driveway. There's parking all the way down the driveway into a sort of courtyard with a big green steel barn at the bottom. So you park up. If you've seen it before, you walk over to the Christmas tree field gate, and on the weekends there'll be Merry Christmas, who will greet you, give you a nice big hug or a kiss on the cheek or whatever tickles your fancy. And there will be tags and staplers on a table next to the gate. You take your own Warwickshire Christmas Trees tag. It's got a number on the label, and it's got a tearaway tag with the same number. You walk out into the field and have a look. Any trees that are already tagged are unavailable. Otherwise, have a look, just look at what takes your fancy. You can have any tree that's there apart from if it's taken. So then when you're ready, you tag your tree round near the top so we can see the tag, and you take your number off. We have staff going around the field probably about every 5 minutes or so. So if you'd like to take the tree with you that day, you wave one of the staff members over, all wearing our big red jumpers, and they will come cut it for you straight in front of you, and then you can either carry it back yourself or we can take it into the trailer so you can just have a nice gentle walk back. And then it gets taken back to the steel building. You go up to the desk and say your number. The tree should be there netted and ready for you by the time you get back. We try to run it as quite an efficient system. And then we see what size tree it is, what type it is. That determines the price. Pay at the desk, and then you're free to take your tree. The other thing that you can do, we run a couple of open weekends in October. So if you wanted to come and get the pick of the field beforehand, you can go out, tag your tree, take your number. We have a very basic grid system of block 1 through 8, and then A to Z down the bottom. Yep. So you say, okay, once you've chosen your tree, once you know the rough height of it, you go back to the desk and say, my tree is tag number 2643, and it's in block 3B. That helps us then, if you'd like us to deliver it, or if you'd like it collected on a certain day, we'll cut it 48 hours before, which is best for the tree, keeps it nice and fresh. So that helps us find it. And then when you come to collect it, just come with your tag number and it should be stacked, prepped, ready to go straight away.
Brilliant. Yeah, because just so people can understand the actual process and how it actually works. So you mentioned, is it Merry Christmas?
Merry Christmas.
Could Merry Christmas just make a guest appearance behind the sofa potentially?
Well, Merry Christmas.
Come on, Merry Christmas.
You've got the red stilettos on. You knew this was going to happen.
Have you got your hat with you?
Where's your hat?
Yeah, where's your...
Well, go on, go and get it.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that.
No, well,
it's fine. It's fine.
The cameras are rolling.
Cut all this. It's fine.
Yeah.
Not the most practical of shoes.
Leave Rudolph outside, please.
There we go. So this is Merry Christmas, did you say?
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. There we go. So this is a family affair. This is the whole team. Thank you so much for guesting on our podcast and stuff. I'm sure that more and more people will find out about what you're doing, and the whole journey of buying a tree is a lot more fascinating than I thought it could be. We wish you well, Mike and Ollie and Suzanne, with the Christmas season, and just reach out if you want to get a Christmas tree and do something a little bit special this year, rather than just rush to your local retailer last minute and get it done. Make a proper experience of it. So thank you so much for coming, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Purpose People podcast. You can obviously see us on YouTube, where you can see our wonderful setting here that we film every time we do a podcast. But you can also listen to us just in your ears on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Google. Please like and subscribe to YouTube, and please leave a review on our podcast. It really helps us get the message out that can help people live a life on purpose, for purpose. We want to help you make purpose a priority.